All right, welcome to the Nate Jones Show. Today I got the man, the entrepreneur, the owner, CEO, Gabe Chase of Brentwood Property Group on the podcast. What's up, man?
What's going on?
How you doing?
Doing good. Excited. First podcast, so.
Heck yeah, first of many, hopefully
Yes,
for you.
yes.
Yeah. So you're the owner of Brentwood Property Group. Tell me about yourself and what is Brentwood Property Group?
Yeah. So like you said, I'm Gabe. I started in entrepreneurship. I always knew I wanted to get into it. So built Brentwood Property Group as really my first real business. Brentwood Property Group is just a short-term rental property management company. Focuses on Airbnbs, midterms, primarily.
Okay, awesome. So can you tell me the process? So you have clients, they buy a rental property, and then take me through the process. Like, how do they make money off all this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we work with so many different people that, whether they bought a house and then they moved out of state and they're like, hey, we want to keep this one as a rental. Let's turn it into an Airbnb. We have clients that this is their second house, so they have a property in Hawaii where they're snowbirds. And then we have investors that just strictly purchase properties here, turn them into Airbnbs. But I mean, primarily step A to Z, it just depends on where they start. If we get a property that's fully furnished and we don't have to set it up at all, it's fairly easy. Do a walkthrough, any recommendations that we would recommend, and then get it live on Airbnb and the other platforms that we use. But yeah, I mean, the owners are pretty much, all of them are just hands off. They hand everything over to us. We run the systems the day, responding to messages, emergencies, things like that, and just cut them a check at the end of the month. Just
Heck
management.
Yeah. So they don't got to worry about it. They can have a property, you manage it, they make the money.
Yep, they love it.
Heck yeah. And then, so you have long-term rentals, but you mainly focus on Airbnbs.
Yes.
So why is Airbnb... Is there more of an opportunity there?
Yeah, I think that the idea behind it is you can just charge more. People are able to come stay for whatever convention, event, wedding, whatever it is that brings them into town. You're able to charge a more of a premium rather than just like $1,500 a month for a house. And some houses don't work as a long term. The mortgage is too high. Whatever it may be, it just doesn't make sense as a long term. So.
Awesome. So how does Brentwood make money?
Yeah, so we collect everything. We collect our all the fees, all of the payout at the end of the stay, and then just like an itemized report. They get a document at the end of the month, say, hey, here's your statement, here's what we had to buy, here's the maintenance we did, but we collect all the money, so we just take our management fee off the top and send them the rest.
Awesome. So you take a percentage of a management fee.
Yep.
So you're incentivized to get that Airbnb leased out.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And that's like our primary goal. Honestly, like when I started the business, I love what I do. So we want everyone to make money and be happy. But yes, we're definitely incentivized. If it's sitting vacant, we have to adjust prices, change photos, whatever it is.
Yeah. I like that. Because, if I don't make money, you don't make money.
Right.
And a lot of times that's not how it works in business.
Yeah, you got skin in the game. It makes you want to lease out the place, right? And yeah, keep it clean. If not, your reviews go down. People don't want to stay. So yeah, definitely.
So you started this business how many years ago? Almost 2 years ago?
Yeah, going on 2 years. Honestly, we just passed probably about a year and a half. But yeah.
Okay. And then because this sounds like just a great timing for you, because Airbnbs have just blown up.
Right.
Everyone wants to stay at an Airbnb. They don't want to stay at a hotel. They want the whole house. They want the experience. And you timing this is just great because locally in our area it's blowing up. But where did you get the idea to really pursue this?
Yeah, it was really interesting. There's just like a whole backstory to it. But to give you the short and condensed version, my fiance and I, we were like, hey, we like this Airbnb thing. We'd like to own our own. We didn't have the funds to go buy a house and furnish the house and then, lease it out, wait for that return. We didn't have the funds. So we honestly pitched just setting up properties or really staging properties. And we had one client come to us and they said, hey, we manage them ourselves, but we're interested in having you set up our properties. So we're like, great, this sounds awesome. We went on to set up like 5 with them, 1 out of state. They flew us out to Austin, Texas, and we set up that property. That was awesome. And she was like, hey, we have friends, we have other people that are interested in management. They just can't find it in Indianapolis. So I think it would be a great avenue. So from there, built a website and really pitched it on 2 local Facebook groups, and then within a month or 2, we had at least 3 clients reach out.
Heck yeah. So you found the opportunity by going out and taking action in something that was kind of complementary to it. The staging is setting up, is furnishing a house so it can sell better, right?
Right, yeah. Yeah. Initially, my fiance bought out a staging company. We had a ton of abundance of furniture. We were looking to start staging houses. She's a realtor, so we're like, we'll just offer that to the clients. We'll stage the house. But that first person that reached out to us, we actually never did a staging deal, never did a staging gig. That first person that reached out to us wanted us to set up Airbnbs. So from there, our whole business just kind of shifted.
Heck yeah. So you saw the opportunity, you took it.
Right.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, and a lot of people are listening to this and they're probably like, oh, well, you must have had an opportunity before, or you must have had something given to you. You started this business while you were in college. Most people don't start businesses in college. They don't even think about that.
Right.
But you're in college and you just graduated, right?
Yes.
Congrats on that. So you started a business in college. So was that hard? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so this is actually my second business. As I mentioned, like, it's first real business, employing people and having like just the feel of a business, right? The first business I started was before COVID, before I really started college. And then the first year while I was in college, I had that business. And that was just Amazon pallets. I'd get pallets. I would then just flip the items in them and sell them for, a profit. That was a great business. I loved it. COVID hit, kind of changed the whole supply chain industry, changed a lot of industries, right? So that was just like a no-go anymore for me, and I kind of just pivoted. I was at this point, I was like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do. So we were trying everything, like hustling to do anything to make money, and looking up ideas, and especially in real estate, right? Wholesaling, things like that. But yeah, I mean, I decided to start the business in college, and I had already had experience with balancing my time between the other business. So it was definitely a struggle. I mean, and now looking back, even just graduating a few months ago, looking back now, I'm like, man, I don't know how I had time to do both, because now I feel like I go into the office and I'm busy all day.
Well, it's interesting that, that first kind of side hustle business, the reselling of the pallets, that stops, and then you're like, hey, no, I'm not going to get a job.
Right.
I'm going to find another way to make money that doesn't exchange my time for money. Right. So like, talk to me about, have you always been an entrepreneur? Ever since I've known you, you've always talked about business. And I think that's why we connect, because you're like, hey man, like, let's think about ways in which we can make money.
Yeah.
So when did that first happen in your life?
Man, it's so hard to say, right? I mean, I think one of the things is I grew up, and my grandmother, she owned properties. My grandma and grandpa owned properties. They owned them in Indianapolis. They weren't super desirable areas by any means, but they were properties. My grandpa was very hands-on, going door to door to collect rent. And it wasn't until they started to decide to sell those properties that I remember meeting with a realtor, and she was like, hey, can you let me into the property? She didn't have the keys. I said, yeah, I'll meet you over there. I'll let you in. And she's like, I'm going to do a showing for someone who wants to buy it. I'm like, great, cool. We pull up. She's there. I'm there. It's like a foot of snow outside. And it was like a trek getting there. So I get there, and she goes, she starts a FaceTime call. And the guy's on like a beach, and he's looking at this as an investment property. And we're sitting out there freezing, walking in like a foot of snow. And I'm like, what does this guy do? So after she gets off the phone, I'm like, what's he do? She's like, oh, he just buys them out of state and he just rents them out. And it was in that moment I was like, oh, like that's what I want to do. I want to do something that doesn't take so much time, but is still making me money, and I don't even have to physically be there. Like that was just like mind blowing to me. So overall goal, I'd like to, own my own rental properties and things like that, buy and holds. But that was really the entrepreneurial real estate bug in me. I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah, you're like, oh, this is possible. This guy can make money, and he doesn't have to clock in and out.
Right. Yeah. I was like, oh. And that was, I believe, to be his full-time job. He's just a real estate investor.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. So that first year in business, what did you not expect? What were some lessons that you learned? Like, go through that with me, because I know my first year in business learned so much.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still learning, right? I mean, I'm sure we both are. Every business owner, I feel like you learn something new every day, every week, every year, whatever it is. First year, wow. I think it would be the fact that I didn't realize that I built a great website with the help of I just used Wix, and they had some templates, and it looked amazing. And I definitely tweaked it, right? Added photos and whatnot. But I think that it stood out so much that when people looked, and I used, and you helped me with the SEO, I ranked so high that when people typed in the keywords, it was like me and 2 other websites that were just, they were okay, right? So I wasn't prepared for how big I would get. And my goal was always 20 units. I was like 20 units by the end of 2023. We're well over that now. But that was 20 units with me being hands-on, like me being the only guy. Because, wow, when we first started, my fiance and I, in our property, the first one we had, we were the maintenance team, we were the one answering messages, we were the cleaners, like we were there, and it wasn't, I mean, super close, 25-30 minutes away, so we had to drive there, clean, change the sheets, right? Like it was really hands-on. So I wasn't prepared for all of the things that take place. I mean, going to restock the place with toilet paper towels, things like that, and maintenance calls at 2-3 in the morning, or messages, right? So definitely, I think that aspect.
Yep. As a small business, you're everything.
Right. One-man band. Yeah.
So going into year 2, I always think the first year in business, and every business, is the hardest, because you're working so hard just to get that first client.
Yeah.
And then it slowly gets easier, where it's almost like a current kind of pushing you forward. Have you seen that?
Definitely. I mean, like I said, we built a great website, and that drove traffic. So we've had really great, I guess, luck and return on that website with people coming in. But yeah, definitely. Once I felt like it was like a small floodgate. Like once we tweaked our SEO, once we changed the photos here, once we got opinions on like what would you do with the website, what should change, you know, should we do social media, should we list on like just other input. I felt like the more tweaks and changes we made, like the gates just opened, and then to the point where it was like, oh, we need some better systems, because people are coming. And I didn't expect it to be such a big business when I first started it.
Yeah,
So.
Well, it's cool seeing you grow. It's just an awesome story.
Thank you.
The number one thing, I like a lot of things about your business, but the number one thing that I love about your business is that it's sellable. On my page, I talk about build a business that you can sell, because if not, you have a job, right? So how important is equity in building a business in which, when I say equity, is value in a business that can be sold, right? So how important is it to you that you're building an asset in which you can sell down the road when you want to retire?
Yeah. I think the number one thing that comes to mind is I'm always looking to find new books to read, podcasts, blogs, whatever. I listened to a podcast the other day, and I don't remember the name of the podcast or the title, but it was something along the lines of how to build a business that can be sold but never sell. So the whole premise is you want to be prepped to sell, but just don't sell your business. And what he spoke about, and he's a property manager, does great. I mean, he has lots of doors. They do long-term property management. But his whole idea, his whole thing was like, even if you're not looking to sell, have it organized. That was the number one thing he honed in on. Have your taxes, have your everything, your ledger, your everything, income tracked, that you just know your income, your expenses, and build that business to be sold, but just don't sell it, at least not till you're ready, right? No one, what he said in the video or the podcast was, no one wants to buy a business that is extremely unorganized, or you can't find your tax returns for the past 2 years, or you're like, oh man, I don't know how much we brought in last month, right? So I think I mean, personally, I love my business, love what I do. I don't see myself selling, honestly, almost probably ever. I think my goal is to continue to build businesses and then work on Brentwood Property Group, an hour out of the week or month maybe, and have it scaled to where, you know, I have teams and systems and employees in place that can run it.
And that's when it's going to be worth the most, because you can leave, you can step out of your business, it continues to run and make money. So as somebody who wants to buy a business like me, I'm not going to buy a business in which I have to go work 40 hours in.
Right.
I want to buy a business in which I make an investment in, and it continues to pay me dividends where I'm not there every day.
Right. No, that is definitely the end goal. And I've thought about that from day one. I think we even spoke, I told you, like, I remember walking into class one day, And right before I walked into the doors, I got an email. It's like, hey, Gabe, I'd love to talk to you about buying your business. And I was like, oh, it's probably like one of those spam emails, right? Yeah, okay. But it was a local company that was interested in my business, and they truly wanted to buy it. And I was like, oh, wow. Mm-hmm. And I think when we spoke, it was kind of like eye-opening for me that there's people out there that just buy businesses. I mean, I never had thought about it, and we spoke, and I ultimately decided it's just not what I wanted to do. I'm not interested. I love what I do. I love building it. I mean, love building a business, right? It's just it's just a great thing. It's awesome. But that's where I was like, oh man, yep. You're right. Like, this is a business that can be sold. It's available to be sold. Like, years down the road, maybe. But it was just interesting. It was eye opening for sure.
It's insane. I read an article that says $2 trillion of private equity money that has not been deployed, used to go buy businesses. So people have given people money and they said, go buy businesses so I can double my money. $2 trillion has not been deployed. Yeah. So people want to buy businesses, and if you build your business the right way, at the end of the day, in that 20, 30 years down the road, you're going to get broken off, you know, and that's just awesome. So you're speaking of mentors and people that you've listened to on podcasts. How important have mentors been to your growth and your whole entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, two come to mind. I mean, when I did my pallets, I remember the backstory to doing that first business was I was looking for a job. I had worked for a realtor. I'd had odds and end jobs here, but like I've never really had like an actual job. So I had applied at places. I had just given up at that point because I hadn't heard back. And I'm on Facebook, and someone's looking to hire someone for a fireworks store that he has. He has multiple fireworks stores, obviously getting close to July. And then he ran an e-commerce business. And that in my head, right when you look up on YouTube any businesses, there's e-commerce and different things. And I was like, oh man, all right, I'm in. So I wanted to learn more, and I told him that. And from day one, he had hired other kids, and they didn't see the bigger picture, right? They're like, oh man, I get paid $10-12 an hour and work at this fireworks store, super easy, right? But I was like, man, I want to learn about this e-commerce stuff. So he took me under his wing, showed me the ins and the outs of the business. And I was like, this is awesome. He's like, I'd like to employ you after the fireworks store. And at that time, I was getting paid like, I seriously think it was like $10 an hour. And I was like, this is the best job ever. I sit here, I don't do anything. And then July 4th came, we were busy, right? But it was super easy job. And then he offered me that job after to continue with e-commerce. I remember walking in, seeing the pallets of literal just Amazon items, anything. It was like a mystery box. I was like, this is awesome. I get to go through this stuff for a job. And then he like kind of not sat me down, but looked at me. He's like, hey, I'm just letting you know, like, this isn't forever. Like, I was like, oh shoot. Like, what do you mean? He's like, well, I'm not going to employ you forever. This is just short term. And I was like, thinking to myself, like, did I do something wrong? What, what's the deal? And he's like, well, I don't want you to, like, this isn't my goal for you. He's like, I see that you have like the entrepreneurial spirit in you. Like, I want you to do this. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I don't really want to do this. I'm getting paid $10 an hour. This is the best gig ever, right? And he's like, no, I want you to buy pallets from me. I'll source them to you, and I want you to do it. I was like, okay. So then I took the leap, and I jumped into it. Started it with my friend. My friend eventually exited, but my mentor in that sense was like, he was the one that like sparked everything in me. Just completely shifted me from like, you have to think bigger. Like, sure, there's people that make $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, but it's the investing, the businesses, whatever you choose to invest your money in. Maybe it's not a startup, but that's where the real money is, and the freedom more than anything. And that's what I didn't understand being a teenager. And then he explained it to me. I started that business. I was making great money, investing almost all of it back into the business, but making great money. I was like, oh wow, this is what I want to do. So I mean, when you surround yourself and you get a great mentor, it's worth its weight in everything. I know I still to this day can call up him and another mentor I've had in real estate that kind of just walked me through when I was flipping houses, and he's like, hey, here's what I would recommend doing here. Those people that you can call on and learn from more than anything are just so valuable.
Yeah, it's high performers hang with high performers. Right.
Right.
And it's like even if you're not a high performer, you got to have that attitude and mindset to get around those people.
Yeah,
and they're going to see that.
Right. And I think the most important thing too, and I saw like a quote, it's like, you never want to be the smartest person in the room. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people that think you do, right? They get that feeling. They're like, oh man, I know my stuff. People are coming to me. No, I always want to be the smallest fish, right? I want to be the dumbest person in the room so I can gain so much more information, knowledge, and soak it all up. I really do love that. I mean, pride aside, like, it's awesome learning as much as you can from some people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and it comes in random ways, too. And someone's not going to knock on your door and say, hey, here's a business opportunity.
Right, yeah, I'm going to show you how to make it. No,
every opportunity. I've heard you today, you were out doing something.
Right.
So from the action resulted in the opportunity.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things that I had to learn was being so young, especially I'm still young in my 20s, right? But when I started, I was like 18, and I always saw that as like a disadvantage. And it wasn't until I started listening to other podcasts and reading books that that is an extreme advantage. People want to help you when you're young. When you're young, taking action, not going to parties and picking up small jobs and not showing up to work. Like, when you're taking action at such a young age, people want to help you. They want to take you under their wing. They want you to succeed. So I think that was very important for me to learn as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so many young people, they get down. They're like, oh, I can't do this right now.
Right.
It's like, hey, you can do it at any time. And speaking of that young person listening right now, what is a business opportunity that you think right now, if you were 5, not in the business that you're in,
right,
but 5 years ago, you're 17, 18 years old. What is something that you think is an opportunity for these kids coming up or young people coming up right now?
I think that there's so much emphasis on the new trend, right? And it's not always the new trend. You don't need to find, that was me. I was looking on YouTube, Googling things like, how can I make money? And there was always someone trying to sell you a course.
Or AI is real big right now.
Right. And there's always there's always something that's new, but that's not always what's the best thing. You know what, off the top of my head, there are how many lawns that need cut, right? Mm-hmm. There's how many driveways that need shoveled. People don't want to do that. And if you can provide a service for someone, a service that's not going anywhere, it's not going to change. If you can just get started, it is better to get started now than to not start and then look in 5 years to be sitting at your desk or in college and go, man, what if I would have started 5 years ago? Seriously, borrow your mom and dad's push mower and then go door to door and ask if they need their lawn cut. Someone's going to say yes, and then that's money that you made.
Because then you're going to see an opportunity
right
for that. Like you service staging.
Yeah,
okay, well,
exactly.
Look at where you're at now.
Exactly. So I think, it's hard to pinpoint one thing that I would say, but even thinking back to 2 years ago, I was like, man, I should have started a lawn care business, right? There's just so many different businesses, and that's the thing that I really do love about talking to people, listening to podcasts, and just learning more is that there's a million and one ways to make money. What's important is just finding one and sticking with it. Mm-hmm. You're gonna succeed. You're gonna do well.
Yeah. So what advice would you give? So someone found a business idea and they're going to start it. Advice would you give for that first year in business?
I think that you have to learn that life is not what you see online, on YouTube, on TV, right? I started flipping houses, and I flipped 3 houses. That was another entry after I did pallets. It's like, man, let me borrow some money. Let me flip some houses. Learned a lot. A ton, right? It's not HGTV where you go in there and then you flip it, it's nice, pretty, and you make $1 million, right? There's things that you truly don't think about. So I think my advice would be, 1, start. Whatever it is, start. Don't always go with the newest thing. If it interests you, start. Do that. Awesome. But start, and don't get that analysis paralysis, right? Don't be like, oh man, I want to do it, I just don't know how, I don't have the money. If you can just start, just start. And then the second thing I would say is stick with it. Like you said, you can remember your first year in business. I remember my first year in business. There were highs and there were a lot of lows, right? And a lot of learning opportunities. So take everything that you can, the lows, learn from them. The mistakes, learn from them. It happens, and it still happens to me. I learn every day. But I think the 2 things would be start, and then don't give up. Just when you get started, the people that the people that don't succeed in whatever business field it is are the people that just end up giving up because it got hard. And business is hard, right? So I think that would be my top two.
Awesome. And then, so where can people find Brentwood?
Yeah, we have a website, Brentwood Property Group. That's about all of our services, and actually now soon is going to be our direct booking website, so all of our properties will be listed on there. And then we're pretty active on Instagram and Facebook, Brentwood Property Group.
Okay, and then people personally, where could they find you on Instagram? Are you on Instagram?
Yes. Yep. Gabe.Chase. We're a lot more active on our business page, but yeah, we post about all of our properties on there.
Awesome. Okay. Well, if anyone has questions on property management, I'm sure you'd be happy to help them out.
Yes. I love what I do. And like I said, I think mentors and people that you surround yourself with, they all want to help you. You know, everyone, there's more than enough money and opportunity to go around. And the sooner that you realize that, it brings joy to help people, right? That's why you started the channel. It's great to talk with people and have someone to bounce ideas off of. So
yeah, it is. And if you want more content like this, hit like and subscribe. We'd be happy to continue to post powerful content.
Yes.
And let's thank Gabe for coming in, man. I really appreciate it. Our first guest on the podcast, and he crushed it.
Thank you.